Today we're joined by the President of the USCCB, Archbishop Broglio, Chairman of the Committee on Migration, Bishop Mark Seitz, and Chairman of the Committee on Pro-Life Activities, Michael Burbidge of Arlington. Thank you for joining us, Your Excellencies, and a warm welcome to all the members of the press joining us today. Before we turn to questions, I want to ask you a question that I think is on everyone's minds, and that, of course, is the election. We are now facing a second Trump administration. Two important issues throughout the campaign were immigration and issues of life. And then, of course, that's why we have invited the two chairmen to join the president of the USCCB for this conversation. Archbishop Broglio, you issued a statement following the election stressing the core issues that Catholics care about, and of course you discussed it again today in your presidential address. What do you want people to know during this time of transition?
Well, I think it's important, first of all, that we all work together as a country. After an election, there are winners and losers, but the main goal is to allow the country to progress. And so in saying that, I think we should learn again to speak and listen to one another. That would be an important first step. Secondly, the Church always insists on the dignity of the human person from the moment of conception to the moment of natural death. And we continue to insist on that. We also insist on in terms of that dignity, also the condition of the poor, the condition of the most depressed members of our society, also our openness to those who come as immigrants. As I said in my address, we don't encourage illegal immigration, but we certainly do take care of those who come to this country and really represent the face of Christ in their need. As we move forward, we hope that there will be an earnest effort to repair the immigration law in this country, and also there will be a renewed respect for the dignity of the human person.
Bishop Seitz, Bishop Burbidge, I invite you to also respond to the question.
You know, I think we have a tendency in our country to see everything through a political lens these days, but we are not politicians. We're pastors. Our lens is the gospel. Our lens is the teaching of our church. And we've been called to do this work on behalf of the people of God, which includes every human being, in that light. So I think this is a time for us to reassert our particular role in the midst of a world that we believe desperately needs God. It desperately needs the insight that comes from the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we will continue to announce that, as the scriptures say, in season and out. And a lot of times it's not popular, but we're not doing it because we want some kind of political power, but rather because we want to announce the good news that Jesus brings about the dignity of every person, and these things have something to say to our society as well, about what will make us a healthy society, a society in which the vulnerable are cared for, not just the wealthy and the powerful, a society in which everyone is respected and loved and treated with a kind of awareness of their special dignity as children of God.
Yes, and no matter what the results were on Tuesday with the election, we knew on Wednesday something would be the same. We are one nation under God, and it is the truth that the Lord gives us that is our path to freedom and to the peace that we're seeking, and the truth that is reflected so clearly in the gospel of life. And as Bishop just said, as pastors, no matter what happened on Tuesday, as pastors, we maintain that mandate to proclaim, to celebrate the gospel of life, which is at the heart of protecting and defending all of human life, from the moment of conception to natural death.
Hi, thank you. I guess this is for each of you in a way, but I think on the campaign trail, abortion, IVF, and immigration were, I think, 3 issues that really kept coming up for Catholics. And I would love to hear from you about the opportunities and challenges with the new administration, specifically on these issues, just looking ahead.
Yeah, I would say with all those issues, again, is the truth that guides us. And with the issues that you mentioned, the protection of the sacredness of all human life, the dignity that belongs to every person as a child of God must be uplifted and defended. And so we will, as we've always done with all administrations, continue to dialogue with our elected officials, to take the opportunities to educate when we can, and to have respectful conversation. But the mandate is the same, and we will continue to persevere in those efforts.
We always look for ways in which we can collaborate with the administration, with members of Congress and the like, and there will still be areas where we can do that. In areas where the positions and actions that are taken are contrary to the teaching of the Church, then we'll express our great concern. And when it comes to the area of immigration, we are concerned based on the rhetoric before the election, and we will, as I say, be watching what the administration does as it begins to announce its plans. We don't want to get ahead of them in a certain sense. We know that very often the reality is different from the rhetoric. We'll watch and respond as needed. And one of the things that we'll certainly be concerned about doing is expressing to our brothers and sisters who are immigrants at various stages in the process of receiving legal status, we'll be telling them, assuring them of our accompaniment with them, that we're not going to run and leave them. We're going to continue, even when things are going very difficult for them, we will be showing our concern for them and are offering them our assistance to them in a way that supports them and their families through these difficult times.
Hi, this question is for Bishop Burbidge. On abortion ballot amendments at the state level, right now the pro-life movement has a losing record, some wins, some losses. I wanted to ask, what lessons have you and the bishops learned about what works well in that fight against abortion, whether it's messaging or money? What things have you learned in the recent election?
Well, we'll celebrate the wins. So we certainly had 3 wins last week, and commend the bishops of those states plus the 7 others, because the bishops and the Catholic conferences worked very hard to educate the people on the issue itself. The ballot initiatives, we have learned that it is very important to be ahead of the game, to get out early in messaging, because the truth has to be conveyed concisely and in a clear way to all the faithful, because distortion of the truth has been a big part of these ballot initiatives. We will never be able financially to keep up with those who are fighting to legalize abortion in their states. And so we have to rely on the truth that we have, also on prayer, on the sacrifices that we make, and also with informing, and this is one of the major lessons we've learned, is making clear the extreme positions of those who are working to legalize abortion in their states. A number of lessons we've learned when one bishop was saying that when they would talk to people and say, do you realize what is on this ballot initiative, how extreme this is? Oh, no, I don't think so. Well, no, yes, it is. And many people then realize, well, I'm not for that. I am not for that. I think encouraging the people to get out and vote was another lesson, to get out early in the game, to go out to our young people, and to realize that we could not rely on typical media resources. We had to find creative ways of getting to all the voters. And the other lesson is to persevere. This is an ongoing. We celebrated the tremendous victory of Roe versus Wade, but we knew soon thereafter the work is only just beginning. So, and partnering would be another lesson that we learned. Partner not only with the Catholic bishops and conferences, but also other entities and groups willing to support the pro-life initiative.
Hi, I'm JD Flynn from The Pillar. I want to ask, if I can, about synodality in the conference, which you mentioned, Archbishop Broglio, in your speech today. The conference now is working on revising the charter. You're working on revising the ERDs. You're going to rewrite faithful citizenship. You're going to work on, I think, Bishop Burbidge, something we share in common, the pastoral statement on disabilities. There's a lot of things happening in the conference right now. And at the same time, the conference has made a shift over the past couple of years to having more discussion in executive session. A lot of bishops say that's been really fruitful. And of course, there's the NAC, which is a consultative body for the conference. But it seems that the Holy Father has said, and even in the synodal document, that synodality should extend sort of beyond direct consultative bodies as broadly as can be into the church. How does the conference do that with the kinds of projects that you're working on now, which really do impact the whole life of the church? Like, what do you do to broaden synodality on those things?
Well, I think since this is actually it's a body of bishops, so we're drawing from really across the country, and I think each bishop brings his experience. He also brings what the local church will have contributed to these topics, if there is some contribution that can be made. I think when you talk about things like the charter, we've certainly learned to listen a great deal to experts in that area, but also to listen to victims, to listen to the experience of the different diocesan review boards, and I think all of that comes to us when we gather in plenary session. We've certainly tried to give much more opportunity to meet in smaller groups and also to meet in executive session, so that there is a certain freedom of speaking. And hopefully that will all reflect synodality. I thought the nuncio made a very interesting draw there from Heidegger about creating in your heart a heart for the other, and that's certainly a very, very good description of synodality. How we can practically introduce that into our deliberations will be something that we continue to work on. But hopefully it will be reflected in when we do speak together about different issues.
Yeah, and JD, you also mentioned the document Persons with Disabilities. A synodal action there is the fact that we will turn to a lot of lay faithful, National Catholic Partnership on Disability, who have expertise and experience in this area. They will have great input in what will be included in that document. So expanding the voices that are being heard before the bishops issue the final draft.
Good morning, or good afternoon, sorry. Yes, I'm Aleja Hertzler-McCain with Religion News Service, and I heard Bishop Seitz earlier say that you all don't want to get too far ahead of yourselves with things President-elect Trump has said he's going to do, but maybe won't do. But I do know that a lot of immigrant Catholic communities are thinking about the potential for mass deportations. And so I'd love to hear from Bishop Seitz if there are plans of what the conference might do if mass deportations do begin to occur. But I also would love to hear from Archbishop Broglio, because President-elect Trump has said he might use the military with those mass deportations, what you might do both in your role as president of the conference and also in your role as Archbishop of the Military Services.
Again, are waiting to see just exactly what takes shape. Certainly, if there is some kind of process, we're going to be very concerned and express that concern that processes unfold in a legal way, that people's civil rights, their basic human rights, which, by the way, are not given by the government, as our Declaration of Independence reminds us, but they are based upon the fact that a person is a human person, that those rights are respected. So we will raise our voice loudly if those basic protections for people that have been a part of our country from its very beginning are not being respected. We think that this is going to be a test for our nation. Are we, in fact, a nation based on law, on the most fundamental laws about the rights of a human person, or are we not? We don't have ourselves a police force or an army or anything like that, but we're going to certainly do our best to express that, and then also to accompany the people that are threatened with what ultimately would be unjust actions for some. Now, let me say, we recognize there are some people that are here who have not taken the steps that they need to, or have not respected their opportunity. If there are people who have been convicted of crimes and the like, then the justice system needs to act and in appropriate ways. I'll just say parenthetically, I have some concern about just sending them back to their home countries, because that's a problem for those countries too. But the justice system needs to have an opportunity to work through these situations and decide who should be the focus of a system like this, and who really, for the benefit of our country, should be able to remain.
I'm not an economist, nor do I pretend to be one, but I've heard from the news media that actually we have more jobs in this country than we have people to fill them. So I don't know if a mass deportation would actually be economically very sound, but that's to be decided at another level. You asked about the military, and in terms of that, the military in this country is controlled by the civilian power. That's the way the nation is set up. So ultimately, they have to obey the orders that they're given. And my responsibility would be to assure pastoral care for them. Unfortunately, the way the military is set up, you cannot conscientiously object to a policy or to a certain war. You have to conscientiously object to war in general. And so that really doesn't provide an avenue out of the service. I would certainly counsel, though, as I have in the past, that no one can be obliged to act against his or her conscience. And so certainly as an archdiocese, and also the chaplains would continue to respect those conscience rights of individuals and try to defend them as best they can within the system, because we have to work in the military system. That's part of who we are.
Bishop Seitz, you're from a diocese and a state where the local government has arguably intervened in the church's ability to carry out its ministry for migrants. So I'm wondering, what have you learned from that? To what extent do you see a connection between immigration and the church's religious liberty, especially as we look forward to the possible steps the Trump administration might take?
Well, we have seen some areas in the life of the church in Texas where we see a real risk to the church's ability to enact the gospel. For us Catholic Christians, the gospel isn't simply a set of nice sounding words. They are calls to action, calls that challenge us to live in a certain way. And when it comes to the care for the most vulnerable among us, then that call becomes rather clear. I don't need to repeat to you all of the different gospel passages that remind us of that. we do have concern when the state says that there are certain people who are hungry that we can give food to, and certain people who are hungry that we may not. Certain people we can give a ride to the hospital, and certain people we cannot. These kinds of issues are of concern in terms of our ability to live our life as Catholic Christians. And it's not only Catholics that certainly feel that tension, but Christians of every bent, and many people who are of no faith, who certainly recognize that this is a fundamental human response to the suffering of other human beings. And we need to be allowed to care for them without saying, first of all, show me your papers.
Before we conclude, I also would invite Archbishop Broglio to respond to this question. I know the religious liberty issue is near and dear to your heart.
It certainly is. And of course, when I took over the Archdiocese, I came back to the United States 16 years ago and took over the Archdiocese for the military services. And I never really thought that religious liberty would have been something that I would have to defend. But I think it is very important. Our primary responsibility is to live the gospel of Jesus Christ and to respond to that gospel. And if that comes into conflict with laws or even the forces of order, then we have to try and make the gospel prevail. That's really our responsibility. The gospel comes alive when men and women who believe in Jesus Christ act according to his teaching. And I think that's, we'll try to, as Bishop Seitz has said very eloquently, we will try in every way to be enabled legally to act, to respond to the needs of people. But at a certain point, the judge is Jesus Christ. And that's the one to whom we really have to answer. So I think fundamentally, this country has always defended religious freedom, not the freedom to worship, but religious freedom. And so I think we have to insist on our ability to live according to our faith and also to practice that faith, especially as it applies to the most needy and the most marginalized of our society.
Thank you very much.